For me, it's a pleasure to see a seed and its journey and where it goes to. It's a pleasure to see what it'll produce and what it'll taste like. And it's a gift then for somebody to enjoy that and enjoy with family and friends.
Lynsay Orton arrived here to our studio in Grow HQ with a basket of the most amazing homegrown food that I have ever seen. Growing rare and exotic fruit and veg from seed became her obsession and a career that changed her life. And we hear how it all happened on this episode of Food Matters. Welcome back to the show. I'm Mick Kelly, and in this series I'm meeting the people who are reconnecting us with real, healthy, sustainable food. They tell us why food matters to them and why it should matter to you too. Now, sometimes we set out on a career path and end up doing exactly what we set out to do, and then sometimes, well, life just hands you a whole different plan. And Lynsay Orton is very much in the latter camp. Unexpected family circumstances turned Lynsay's hobby of growing her own food into a very niche and successful business, cultivating unusual and heirloom vegetables exclusively for chefs who cook for the biggest companies in the world. Operating out of just 6 polytunnels, Lynsay grows over 1,500 plants, all grown from seed. Now that's a busy summer. If you're into growing food or even into growing a business, you're going to really love this chat.
I'm bringing the quirky, the unusual, the different stuff. I'm bringing the stuff out that they can kind of show off to their customers, and then they can do something special with it. This year, a couple of the new ones that I did was a yellow pepper tomato, and literally it looks like a yellow pepper.
This absolutely looks like a yellow pepper, but you're saying that's a tomato.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shape shifting going on.
Yeah, well, you see, sometimes I just find something, oh, God, that'd be a bit of crack now if I got that to go, you know? And then as well as that, when I have a break, then I kind of go, oh, what will I grow next year? You need time to plan. In any of this, you have to plan. If you don't plan, it's destined for disaster.
What a wonderful business you've created that, like, you can just explore weird shit, you know, that you like to grow and that you get a kick out of, and people pay you for it. Like.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned earlier, Lynsay did not arrive at Grow HQ empty-handed. And a little later in the conversation, you'll hear her describe some of the most amazing varieties of rare and exotic fruit and veg and the challenges of growing them. So have your notebook at the ready. But I kicked off our chat right back at the beginning, asking Lynsay how this amazing business started.
I fell into it, literally fell into it. If I talked to myself 10 years ago, I would have said, what? You're going to do what?
Yeah.
And I didn't expect to be where I am now. I suppose my background is geography and environmental management. Okay. And I did work in environmental consultancy for a while. And then I took leave with my kids. One of my kids was sick, and then I'd had more kids and everything was fine. And then my father-in-law lives a short distance away, and he ran a mushroom business for the best part of 30 years.
Aha.
Yeah.
So he had tunnels.
He had tunnels and things.
Yeah.
And then he retired out of that, but he wanted to dabble in something. The mushroom business is 24/7. Like, you pick Christmas Day, there's no stopping with mushrooms. It's constant business. He decided to retire, but he wanted to do something to keep him ticking over.
Yeah.
So he was dabbling in strawberries. He had quite a few tunnels of strawberries, and he was dabbling in a few different types of mixed veg. That's what he was
selling
doing.
them roadside or something
kind
like
of,
that?
yeah, something like that. And then in May 2016, he just had a heart attack and he died. So it was a complete shock to family. Man? Yeah, he was just turning 65, literally.
Oh my God, that is.
So he was very young. Yeah. With a rake load of grandchildren, and he was robbed. And his wife had died 10 years previous, so it was very hard on the family because they were very close. So it was very tough on them. So we lived a short distance, like literally a stone's throw away, and myself and Theo and the kids. And he had 2 staff at the time, Jana and Sergey, who were helping him, and they weren't fluent in English and they needed help. So Muggins here went over to try and figure out what was going on. So I went through all his notes, tried to contact his contacts and figure out where he was selling stuff, what he was doing. So it was literally... It was
kind of an existing business there still, was there?
Yeah, like it wouldn't have been anywhere near as big as the mushroom days at all.
Yeah.
It was much more low key. He didn't want anything too serious, but he wanted to keep himself busy on a seasonal basis. But yeah, so literally it was May, strawberries.
Yes.
So we had something like 3 or 4 tunnels of strawberries at the time. They had to be sold. I had to figure them out. So literally it was getting in the deep end, talking to Jana, figuring out what she was doing. I remember going up to Clark's strawberry farm and chatting to them, trying to learn stuff. Yeah, it was literally knee-deep stuff.
This was 2016.
2016, yeah. And at the time, one of John's working colleagues, William Talon from Ready Chef, he's a wholesaler, he had said, like, look, if there's any diffs, give me a shout. And he happened to stick his head in the tunnels and he saw these mad tomatoes and he went, there's a place for that if you're interested. And I sort of said, oh, well, we'll see, you know. So anyway, that year I kind of started working with Jana and kind of realised there's something nice about this. Do you know, there's something nice about going in and picking your own tomatoes and eating it and getting nice flavour. I kind of got a bit of a buzz off it, despite all the craziest. Well, my dad and my parents are definitely avid growers. They have an amazing garden. And my dad was always growing veggies. He always had veggies. When I was a kid, my fingernails were purple from picking purple peas and blackcurrants, you know. So that was a common thread. Yeah, here in Waterford. And his dad up in the north, actually, for a living, he actually looked after people's gardens. So it was my dad was always doing stuff. There would always be a windowsill.
Kind of background
there. A bit, yeah. I suppose maybe I picked it up by osmosis. I don't know. But he was always growing things from seed. There was margarine pots with bits and pieces of plastic on the windowsills trying to get things growing. Dad's always has got cuttings and he's busy doing something, you know. This year he'd been given a slip of a grapevine and he'd looked after it, and this year he had the most amazing grapes. I was like, wow, Dad, you know. So yeah, so that's
still growing away.
He's still growing away. He's a little patch. Onions and leeks are his favourite.
Yeah.
But he's always growing bits and pieces. So I said, here, Dad, here's some tomato plants. So yeah, he's always tipping away at that.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking about the setup. So you've got 6 tunnels.
Yeah.
Like obviously mushrooms, you're growing under plastic, but it's like black plastic, I guess.
So that
right?
had been
you're
taken
trying to
off.
keep light out instead of light in.
So it's basically that plastic was taken off and it was converted to a polytunnel.
Had been at that stage when you took over, or you did that?
Yeah, there was some of them had been taken over. We think we've added 1 or 2 since then.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah. Tell us then, what did you do next? So like you had this sense of there's potentially a market for it. What did the market turn out to be? So
that was 2016. And then 2017, I said, look, we'll keep going at this. So we'll keep going. And Jana was still there and she was teaching me. Then I went off and did a course with Chagas. I did the fruit and veg production course.
Yeah.
So that was great. So that gave me a bit more confidence what I was doing. And I also got to meet like-minded people and chat to people that were thinking getting into the industry. So there was that side. And then the feedback from the tomatoes the previous summer was so positive that they were like, you should keep going with this. So that's what happened. And then William introduced me to a global food company, and one of the chefs came down and said, this is great. And he was like picking cherry tomatoes going, we love the taste, Lynsay. So I started off with 10 varieties. Now I have 40 varieties of tomatoes. So that'll give you an idea of where we started and where we've gone to.
Yeah.
You know?
40 varieties of tomatoes.
Yeah.
Can you say who the global food company is?
Yeah, sure. It's Compass Ireland.
Okay. So have you got kind of multiple customers or just...
How to say, Compass Ireland are a big company, but they do catering for lots of different places all around the country. So it could be Google, it could be Intel, I think Boston Scientific, AirCap, Citibank. Like there's named but a few. Yeah. But my stuff has ended up in places like that.
Wow. But Compass are your customer.
Yeah. So, but they're like a customer within a customer. It sounds like it's much more friendlier than that. Do you know what I mean? It's not like, you know, I know some of the chefs that come down and I know which ones are apart from which units and stuff like that. So
including the chefs from Compass's customers. So like you could have a Google chef coming down. Yeah. Or you could have
a Compass. They work for Google, but they're a Compass chef.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So
amazing.
Yeah.
As an organization, GIY, we do quite a lot of work with some of those companies that you're mentioning, like just running food growing programs and things like that in workplaces. And like having visited some of those kitchens, like these are extraordinary kind of food campuses as well as, you know, extraordinary tech companies or pharma companies or whatever, that they've got like some of the best chefs, including, you know, previous fine dining chefs. They've got like multiple restaurants on one side. Like they're extraordinarily into their food, aren't they?
Massively so. Like I'm gobsmacked anytime I go up and meet them, or if sometimes they offer me lunch, I'm like, oh yes, please. You know, I've been really privileged. They've actually taken some of my produce and actually used it on their menus and actually put my name on the menu. I'm like, whoa. So I think there was one occasion I was a couple of years ago, they wanted me to grow produce for an event in London. So I did that and they were able to take that and use that and put on the menu. And then they said, you do know you're going as well? And I went, I am? So they brought me over. But the idea was they can sort of say to their customers, Here's the menu, here's the grower, here's the connection. So it kind of brings fork to table kind of right there in front of them. So I kind of say, and they say, well, how do you do this? Well, I said, well, here's the seed and this takes this long to grow. Well, the drill when it comes to growing from scratch. So
it feels like you've really found your niche. Like, so you're not their carrot grower or their onion grower, of which they would be using. I mean, some of these, I can't remember the figures from Google, but the number of people they're feeding every day in Ireland
it's colossal.
Is extraordinary. Like, I think it could be 250,000 people around the world that Google feed every day, staff-wise. You're not that person. You're not their veg supplier. Like, what is the niche then that you've...
I'm bringing the quirky, the unusual, the different stuff. I'm bringing the stuff out that they can kind of show off to their customers. Yeah. And then they can do something special with it. Like, obviously, my tomatoes and my chilies are the main part. The tomatoes is the biggest cash crop that I have. Okay. But, like, I'm bringing something different to the table. So it means if they're doing a high-end event, they have these really unusual vegetables they can play around with. Yeah. And they can say, she's only 40 minutes, maybe an hour from Google offices. It's fresh. Yeah. It's come from there, and then tastes completely different. So that's
the niche. And that suggests if tomatoes and peppers are your big two, probably,
at the moment,
At the moment. That suggests it's a really seasonal business because they're, what is it, like July to October, something like that?
Yeah.
So, more or less?
Yeah, more or less.
So that begs the question, what are you doing for the rest of the year?
Well, I'm working. I'm not just sitting on my bum.
Yeah, well, you have to get there.
Stuff. So you're starting from February, really. And then you're working all the way to November. Like, it could be October, November when you finish. But then you have to clean everything down. You got to wash the tunnels down. You got to clean everything out, make sure it's squeaky clean. You got to do tunnel maintenance. And then you need to have time out because otherwise you burn out. Yeah. So I take time out. I switch my time back into my kids and family. And then as well as that, when I have a break, then I kind of go, oh, what'll I grow next year? Yeah. And I get excited and I start researching stuff and I want to kind of think, well, what'll I do next year? And I kind of plan out for the following year. You need time to plan. In any of this, you have to plan. If you don't plan, it's destined for disaster. You have, especially when you're doing that many tunnels, and because there's only really me and I have a couple of staff to help me pick, I have to plan accordingly to make my time more efficient when I'm out there working.
I'm just curious about the cash flow side of it. I mean, it's a very seasonal cash flow as well. Presumably then you're getting the lion's share or all of your income from July to October or November or whatever. Yeah. Is that okay? Like, can you kind of manage your way through that?
I'm not working all year round. This was never meant to be like, it's not going to be like my full-time job. I'm still looking after my kids at home. If you like, in inverted commas, it's like a part-time job. Yeah. So, and I do it because I love it. And I didn't know where this would take me. Yeah. I didn't know I'd get to where I am now. So I'm kind of progressing each year. And there's been different things happening each year. Compass have brought me in to do more ancillary things, telling people about plants, teaching them, showing them how to sow in different bits and pieces. So there's other things are happening as well, just gradually each year. I'm not looking for it. It's just happening organically, excuse the pun, but it's happening like that. Yeah.
Tell us about how you grow then. So you mentioned organically. Is it organic?
Not at the moment. But funny enough, I did talk to some Chagas advisors, and actually I can't officially be organic because I grow everything in containers. So which is an interesting thing I hadn't realized. I only discovered that about a year and a half ago. So effectively though, I try to do as much sustainable and green practices as much as possible. Yeah. I think I've done a lot to be down that road. So if anything ever changes, I'll be ready to switch. I suppose the last thing I'm working on is probably organic fertilizers. Yeah. I still haven't tweaked that yet, but I've been trying different things. Each year you're changing and trying to do something different, but not doing too much too quickly because you don't want to upset the apple cart.
Why are you growing in containers with tomatoes and things, for example? Well, why not grow them in the ground?
I would love to be able to do that, but the tunnels are 30 meters long and they're concrete floors. So
that's a good reason.
That's a good reason.
So to be either get new tunnels and then dig up all that concrete or do them in containers.
If they're all in raised beds, it would be backbreaking. It's easier to do in containers and move. So so everything's in containers. Okay. All upcycle containers.
And is the concrete flooring a legacy of the mushroom growing?
Yeah.
Okay. So mushroom growing, I don't know much about it, but I'm guessing is it up off the ground
it's on staging. It's on staging. Yeah. Okay. So there were maybe 2 staging. It would have been phase 2 mushrooms at the time. So I think there was 2 or 3 layers. That's how it was. And there was like 3 distinctive areas inside the tunnels. So I think in some of the tunnels I have 3 lines and then other tunnels I have 4 lines. Okay. Running down. So yeah.
I'm guessing there's some challenges that come with container growing tomatoes for like commercially, that you've got to get a lot of, they're very hungry, thirsty plants. You've got to have to get a lot of nutrition and water to them.
Yeah. Yeah, so we have an artesian well that we work off. So we've that. Then also I would make my own green tea early on. So I have my own nettle tea that the plants would get at the early stages before there's any blossoms. So there's little quirks I do. I use seaweed. And in some of the, not so much the tomatoes, but more so the other plants that are in containers, I'd have a base of fertilizer at the bottom that I'd work off. So I'd have organic chicken pellets and stuff like that. And calcium and stuff like that at the base. So I kind of work from that on the way up.
Yeah.
With the tomato plants, I'll do things ad hoc at different times. I have an irrigation system with a drip feeder in it, and the fertilizer goes through that. So I have a regulated system then. Plants like to be watered regularly.
Yeah.
They like a regular system. They don't like it when it's like a bit here and a bit there. They function better when you can do things on a regular time.
I know our head grower here, Richard, talks about that a lot. It doesn't really matter whether it's once a week or 3 times a week, as long as it's consistent and you're getting the right volume of water.
Correct.
Consistently. What about sort of things like something to put the plants in then at the start of every year? And are you growing the tomatoes from seed?
We do everything from seed.
Wow. How many plants is it?
Last time I checked, I think it was over 1,500. So I don't.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think I have over 800 tomato plants. That'll give you an idea.
Wow. Okay.
So I'm busy.
So you're growing then from seed, module trays in February or March,
I have
I
little
guess.
pots. I have little pots. They're probably a couple of centimeters wide, and I put like 3 seeds in one. I know you could do them in plugs, but I don't know why I like doing it in 3 in one go. Fits into my little propagator. So, and then sure, the tomatoes take about a week. Chilies, aubergines, sweet peppers, anything from 2 to 3.
Yeah.
So it's always a little joy when you see the chili. You're like, yes, it's happened. It's happened.
I have a business again.
I didn't know if it was going to work, but it has.
Yeah. So then you're moving them into bigger and bigger pots as the season
so it's
progresses.
different stages. So I start with the chilies and aubergines early, then I do the tomatoes.
Yeah.
So by the time that's ready, like the propagator's empty and I start again. So I managed to find a propagator with a nice constant temperature. I was like, oh, this is great. You learn as you go along. The first few years I wasn't doing that, and I was like, why is it not effective? And then I bought like a really good propagator with a thermometer kind of gauge on it. So that was good. So I did that, but that meant the chilies were a lot more, how would you say, they were a lot more predictable. They were kind of more reliable coming up for germination.
They
germination
are very slow, aren't they? They're like,
Yeah, I was flabbergasted. I think this year some came up in 10 days. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But you know yourself, when you're germinating things, even in tiny pots, you're constantly watching it. It could be too dry, it could be too wet. You just have to be on the ball with it. I've now got it down to a fine art. You know those little syringes you get with the Calpol bottle? Yeah. They're brilliant because it just gives you exactly 5 ml and you can put it into your pot and you know you haven't given it too much. So I'll go around and do that.
That's a fantastic tip. Wow, brilliant. I love that. I love a real practical little thing like that. You brought a fantastic plant, which people can't obviously see because we're a podcast, but when you took it out of the car, I kind of thought, I'm growing that tomato variety at home. And you said, that's not a tomato. Tell me about this plant that's in front of us.
It's actually a red aubergine plant. It's called Nagoyo. There's another variety as well called red Turkish. But yeah, I suppose the best way to describe it is, it does look like a tomato plant from a distance, but on
like
closer
kind
inspection,
of a small beefsteak tomato. With
that kind of shape. Yeah, like more of like a flat tomato, if you like.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, from a distance, it probably looks a bit like a potato leaf from a distance, really, doesn't it?
It does.
But when on close inspection, you see these seriously large thorns and you go, okay, top and bottom.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a wild plant. Funny enough, I had a similar variety, say red Turkish last year, and it didn't have those thorns. So we got a bit of a shock this year going, ooh. So it's been fun picking it.
Magnificent black stems, like it's just gorgeous. So actually when you study the stems and the leaves, it does read a bit more like an aubergine, but then the fruit itself, just still staring at it here, and it still looks like a tomato to me. Do they get kind of more oblong than that as they grow?
No, that particular one, they just stay like it's a round shape.
Yeah.
Like I have different aubergine varieties in the tunnel, and there's some are like fingered shape, and then some are more rounded shape like an egg. So, but that one there is a bit different again because it's flatter base on the bottom of it. But yeah.
I was saying to you as we were carrying this in, number one, the thorns were sticking into the back of my neck as I was trying to carry it. But number two, I was saying, like, I'm rarely gobsmacked anymore by veg plants, I suppose, from being around them for so long. But that is extraordinary. Like, it's like nothing I've ever seen.
I was trying to think, what could I bring down that Mick hasn't seen?
Yeah, exactly. Well, hats off. You certainly blew my mind with that one. The reason I bring that one up is The size of pot that's in, so it's a big pot that this plant is in. Is that the typical size for your tomato plants and chilies? Is that your...
The tomato plants are actually in kind of growing media bags, but everything else is in containers. So say, for example, I have a squash tunnel, so I'll have like courgettes and patty pans, and I've Denise de Frugrand, Tondo de Nizza, that kind of thing. They're actually grown in, your crate, your Tesco crate?
Yeah.
I have loads of crates similar to that size, like that. So say if the growing media comes in plastic, I take the plastic off and use that as a liner in the crate. So the plant is actually growing in that.
Okay.
So they probably have a basket in front of me here. So I suppose it's a metre long by half a metre wide, something like that.
Okay.
That kind of size.
And is it a potting compost?
Yeah, again, some of it's my own compost. Yeah. Some of it is stuff I get in as well. So it's a mixture of things.
Yeah. How much did the kind of environmental management sort of background feed into the approach that you have to growing?
Well, I suppose obviously there was the growing side. There was a separate entity that I kind of just fell into that and realized I really enjoyed it. And then I was like looking around going, I could do this, I could do that. So like obviously my father-in-law, I kind of set up the kind of repurposing of the steel bars from the mushrooms into the polytunnel. So that was kind of done. But then I kind of saw all these crates, thought, well, if we should use those. So then I thought, well, everything's in containers. So I started doing that. Then that's when I saw the plastic could be reused. Then like I did buy in initially small pots to do the initial germinating in, but then I needed the next pot up. I suppose the pots you get from your garden centre, like a primrose pot, I needed quite a lot of those. Yeah. So I just called up the garden centre, do you have any that you don't need? And they went, yeah, loads. So I think I probably used thousands of those pots, thousands. And then there was one year I was actually selling herbs. So they got reused again as herbs. So it probably got used 3 or 4 times and it's still sitting at home being used again for the following year. Yeah. So that's something I've saved a lot of plastic on doing that. Obviously the irrigation system, there was like a manual irrigation system there, but then we reinvested in it and now it has a lovely funky dunky app. So now it means my watering is even more efficient. It means that I can leave the farm. Wow. So it means if I'm away and if the weather's hot, I can turn the water on. It's possible now. So that actually, it really transformed things for my personal life.
There's always that little niggle in the back of your mind, is the hose unplugged at the wall.
Oh yeah.
As you turn it on.
How many times have you double checked that? I know it's constant, but that made a massive difference and it actually made the watering more efficient as well. Yeah. So, because you then knew exactly, well, you kind of knew roughly how long you were spending, but then you knew exactly how long you were spending on watering and you can tweak it. Yeah. So there was that.
And you can work out how much to give to the plants. Like it's very targeted, I guess.
And then like there's times in the year when tunnels can get quite hot. Like there could be a variation of 10 degrees between outside and inside, maybe more. So then I was kind of realizing as I was growing with stuff, I should be putting a mulch on these plants. So either there was a tree that had fallen down, we used the bark mulch, or I took the grass cuttings and put that on top, and that acted as a mulch. That saved a huge amount of water. It's something simple, but it's very effective. Yeah. So little things like that. So I'm always looking to see. And then I suppose the other thing as well is with the kind of packaging then that the produce goes up to the customer in, I got chatting to the wholesaler and I said, like, is there a way we can kind of reuse stuff here? And he was like, yeah. So he had all these like fruit boxes that were coming in from different places, and those fruit boxes were sent to me, or veg boxes, like cardboard boxes. Usually they kind of flat pack them and they would recycle them. But he says, here, you take that. So I would be taking that and I'd be putting the squash into that and sending that back up to the customer. And then we realized there was plastic crates and containers that could be reused and washed. It's taken a wee while, but now we've got a system now where it goes to say Google, and then Google brings it back, and then I use it and wash it and reuse it again. So now there's like a closed circle there, which is fantastic. That kind of thing has become more and more prevalent, and I was always kind of asking, can we do it? Can we do it? Yeah. And it's starting to happen now.
It can be done. It does sort of jump out for me, Lynsay, that like you'd have in your mind a kind of a view that these huge companies and the huge catering companies, like they're like setting their menus and they're buying a load of produce, whereas they're not kind of doing that with you. It feels much more like you're offering them something and they're choosing to take it, which is probably really different to how the majority of our food system works now. Yeah. How have you found the chefs to work with, I guess, like that they're...
That's great. I mean, it's a real privilege. It's a real privilege to have a chef come up and sort of see things and taste things. Then you kind of see what they like. I mean, they're all about taste and they're all about colour and how things look. But like, I've had chefs come in and I'd say, oh, they'd be popping down. And I'd say, right, I get the mozzarella, I get the olive oil, I get the salt and pepper. And I'd go off there and pick something. And they'll go and pick something. And you just see them taking them on. They're just eating them like sweets. And you're kind of going, I must be doing something right, you know? So they're taking that and then they'll bring back to their kitchens and they'll talk to their team and they'll say like, this is Lynsay's produce. This is something special. Let's do something nice with it. And then they'll create these gorgeous dishes. They've actually had a few events in the farm as well, which is great. Wow. So their clients will come up, they can have a look around, they can see the plants growing, and it brings that connection all closer. And they know when they've tasted something, they know that's where it's come from. I'll actually show them the seed and say, this seed was sown in February or March, and this is it now. So they can see journey. Exactly, they see a journey.
The nature of our food system now is like, it's all about efficiency, and, you know, seasonality is under such threat, I suppose, because of the way we eat now. Is there ever a sense of like, yes, Lynsay, we love your produce, but can you give us these all year round? Or can you...
I think they know by me it's not going to happen.
But they're totally into the way you're doing it.
Yeah, well, they know it's seasonal and they know what they're getting has followed Mother Nature. Like my tunnels are unheated polytunnels. I'm at the behest of Mother Nature. So, you know, March, you could think, well, will I put my tomato plants out? And you're going, you could have snow, you could have frost, you could have 20 degrees. You don't know what you're going to get in March, you know? Yeah. So I'm completely at the behest of Mother Nature. So I'm watching things every day to see how things are going. Yeah. So I'm definitely seasonal. You know, I have tried to do a couple of bits and pieces in the winter, but it needs time. And at the time, I need a break. I need a break. So
I'm assuming your chilies and your squashes and things are your kind of final thing for the year.
Chilies are the chilies and the habaneros, the serrano chilies and the habaneros.
Squashes are ready soon, I guess. No?
Yeah, well, I have a few. The squash mostly is more summer squash. It's mostly courgettes and patty pans and stuff like that. I did grow pumpkins there a few years ago, but I found it more cost effective to switch to chilies. So that's why I did that.
So your chilies are your last one. You just happened to mention on the way in again, which speaks to the seasonality thing, that because it's been, you know, low light levels as the summer, your chilies are
about a month later.
Wow. How do the customers react to that then? So they're all crying out for those lovely chilies they got in September last year. What
can I do? Just say, I can only warn them ahead of time. Look, I'll kind of give them a gauge and say, look, they're not coming in as early as they were last year. Now, last year, we had a lovely June last year. So at that time of the year, that's when all the flowers come into blossom. So it got it at the right time. We did have a nice week, I think, in August last year. So that really brought it on again.
Yeah. So and is there ever any pressure for you to just like get bigger and say, you know, geez, Lynsay, if you put in another 6 tunnels, it'd be great now and we could double our production.
But then you see, I think I would lose the bit of magic that I like. I mean, I'm a bit mad. I actually like doing the germinating. I like seeing that coming up. In February, when everything's still a bit gloomy outside and you see something pop up in the pot, it's the best buzz. It's the best buzz. And then you think, I've got it from here. Can I get it to there? You know, can I get to the next stage? Will I get like the seed leaves and the true leaves? Oh, I will. You know, and then it's like, you know, will I get a flower? Oh, I will get a flower. And then will the bees pollinate it? Yes, they will. And then it's like, oh, I have a fruit. Well, what size is it going to be? It's always that, what is going to happen? I can't help it. It's just addictive.
Magic.
My problem is I have to stop sowing. I have to go, Lynsay, that's it. Stop. So it usually gets to April, May. I'm like, no, the last thing I tend to sow. I'm so busy sowing the vegetables. The last thing to sow is the flowers. Yeah. So I'll have all my big pollinator stuff outside. But that's the last thing to sow.
And the flower, are they commercial as well, the flowers?
No, I have done some edible flowers in the past, but generally speaking, it's not. It's more about just I have a couple of bee boxes in for the tomato tunnels, but then I'm telling the local bees to come in as well. Yeah. I'm sure you've seen it as well with the courgette plants. How many times have you seen a bee asleep in a flower, in a courgette flower? You tap the box going, excuse me, I need to get a courgette. Move on, please. So anything that brings in the local bees is always a plus. Okay, very good. There's a great grower I know locally here in Waterford, and he always says in the spring the sap rises in growers, which I think is a brilliant way to describe it. And it feels like your two motivations for getting the sap to rise every year is like excited about trying new things, new varieties, and then just the magic of germination and things starting to happen in the spring. Would that be fair? Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, I mean, you just get that buzz. I can't describe it any other way. And then it's just when you get to the other end and then you taste it and you know how lovely it tastes and somebody else enjoys that, that's a privilege. Yeah. A quick one.
Now, I know you get asked on almost every podcast these days to hit that follow or subscribe button, but they never really tell you why that's important. Simply put, if you hit the follow button, it helps us to grow the show, get more great guests, and to reach more people just like you. So it's a small gesture from you that means a huge amount to us. Thanks. Now back to the episode. I want to talk a little bit about some of the produce in front of us before we kind of loop back to the bigger picture problems, I suppose, in veg growing in Ireland and the food system and so on. But I think we can't go any further without talking about some of the varieties in this basket, which we'll put a picture in the show notes, I think, so people can have a look at. Like, I feel like I grow lots of varieties of tomatoes at home, but this is extraordinary. Will you talk a little bit about some of the varieties here, what we're looking at, and we might even taste a couple.
Yeah, so I suppose the best thing to start with the tomatoes. So I have, like I said, roughly about 40 varieties. So I've over 2 tunnels. So I'll have 2 lines of beefsteak. So that could be varying colours. 2 lines of what I call your typical red to medium tomato.
Yeah.
2 lines of mixed, so that could be any colour you like, but they tend to be smaller than your beefsteak. And then I have 2 lines of cherry, and I actually extended the cherries this year. I have another line of cherries in a half tunnel. So that'll give you an idea of how many tomatoes there are. Like I said, there's about over 800, I think, tomato plants I've sown. So I suppose to start with the beefsteak, you'll have your brandywines, you'll have white lotus, you'll have white wonder, black Crimea, black Crim. They're kind of like your brown tomatoes. I've had Moonglow, I think is one from the SSA. That's just to start with. And then your red tomatoes, some favourites would be Bloody Butcher. I know it's a shocking name.
Shocking name.
And then I just go with the variety names because I think they're just so funny. Saint Pierre is a lovely French tomato. Holly Rose, that's just the name, but Stupis is another one. Oxheart's a lovely, fantastic tomato. It's an early tomato. And then when you get into the mixed line, then you have your pink Thai eggs, which is literally like a small egg-shaped pink tomato. There's green
here.
Yeah, that's that one there.
That one?
Yeah. And it's quite a prolific tomato.
Yeah.
So,
can I taste this one?
Yeah, go for it. So, and then while mix eating, the other ones in front of me here, there's one called Green Zebra. And it's literally, it's like a green tomato with a hint of yellow. And it's actually an American variety. So that's Green Zebra. Most people think, can you eat that? I'm like, yes, you can.
Yeah.
So then this year, a couple of the new ones that I did was a yellow pepper tomato. And literally it looks like a yellow pepper. So yeah, that's that one.
This one?
Yeah.
So this absolutely looks like a yellow pepper, but you're saying that's a tomato.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shape shifting going on.
Yeah, well, you see, sometimes I just find something, oh, God, that'd be a bit of crack now if I got that to go, you know. That was a new one this year. And I thought,
what's the variety called?
Yellow pepper tomato.
So it does what it says on the tin.
It does what it says on the tin. So I remember sending a picture to Shay, one of the chefs, and said, is it tomato or is it a pepper? So we had to guess. Because I had a pepper and I was able to kind of compare the two. So
and
funny.
Does it taste as good as it looks like? Sometimes with these varieties that are a bit gimmicky. They're
no, that one probably hasn't got as, it still tastes good, but it probably wouldn't have as much flavour as, say, like a cherry tomato or something like that. To me, personally, I'm a sucker for the brown tomatoes. I think that uranami taste has an extra kick to it, but that's my own personal taste. And I also like the orange tomatoes. There's like isn't there a mango tomato, or there was another variety that Jana had given me from Latvia called Oranza. Oh, it's an amazing beef, or like a beef bush, massive big orange tomato. It was just, flavour was amazing. So yeah. But there's one other tomato here that I should point out. We were talking about it earlier. I was showing it when we came in. It's called Pink Tibet apple, and it comes from the ISSA. And it actually looks like a pink lady.
It just looks exactly like an apple. Like you expect to bite into that and get that kind of crisp, you know.
You just have seeds all over the place.
Yeah. That's amazing. Is this a good taste?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I'm a sucker for the cherry tomatoes. Yeah, take that one.
I'm going to cut this one in half.
I'm going to grab a cherry tomato.
Oh, wow. So it looks like a tomato once you open it up. That's amazing. What's this variety called again?
Pink Tibet apple.
Yeah.
It's from ISSA.
What's so strange about it is you pick it up and it looks like an apple, so you expect it to be kind of hard and crisp, but it's actually quite soft because it's
actually, but as well as that, some tomato varieties are harder than others. That one's quite a soft one, so you have to pick it quite early. So
gorgeous.
It's all about flavour.
Beautiful. Oh my God.
So the heirlooms are a bit different. I mean, some people say, why don't you just buy the tomato plants? And apart from the fact I have addiction to just germinating seeds, which we've already discussed, the second thing is you can't actually buy those tomato plants.
Yeah.
You have to grow them yourself.
Yeah. You mentioned ISSA, which is Seed Savers, obviously, here in Ireland. Are you saving your own seed?
I do. I have to say, like, I do get seed from different Irish seed companies. So, like, I think about 90% of the stuff I have is from Irish seed companies. So I will save ones that I know I can't get.
Yeah.
But in the main, I do support seed companies because I know I'm guaranteed to get, the next generation. I know all the tomatoes I grow are majority are open pollinated, but I'm still just like that security of knowing that the seed company, they will do it better than I will,
I want to ask you about Sungold because I think Sungold...
Sungold Select is the one I have, actually.
Is it a different, slightly different variety?
I know Sungold is like an F1, so it's more of a hybrid.
Right, okay.
But you can get Sungold Select. And actually it's slightly better because it doesn't split as quick.
Yeah. I was going to say that, like, it is a beautiful tomato, and certainly in my tunnel, it's generally the first tomato to come in the year, and often the last as well. Like, it's a very long season and a beautiful flavour. Like,
yeah. Oh, and you can actually smell, like, if you have the Sungold, it actually smells. The plant itself actually smells of tomatoes.
Yeah.
So you're kind of going, oh, it smells nice.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's a brilliant one for people to grow. So you've given us loads of brilliant variety ideas there. Talk to me about the chilies, because again, a lovely selection of different types of chilies there. So, what are chefs going for typically there? Are they going for heat or?
Well, I suppose with me, it's whatever's unusual. So the Serranos was obviously specifically for one particular customer, so they wanted that. So I've been growing that. That was a new thing kind of in COVID because I had space. So I said we would try to grow chilies. I suppose there's not that many Irish chilies grown in Ireland, so that was the reason for that. But then the other chilies I have, there's one here, and I'm going to describe it. It's called Elefantenrussel. It's actually a German heirloom, and it's yellow. I suppose it's meant to look a bit like elephant's ears or something. I'm not sure. So I don't know.
It looks more to me like Edward Scissorhands. One of his fingers on one hand or something. It's kind of long, shapely. And
it's a bright
like a witch's
yellow sunny
nail
color
or something.
Yeah. So it's a mad looking chili. Another one was Orange Tiger, a Thai chili, and I think I have it here as well. There's a nice bite off that one if you're brave.
Now, when you say nice bite, is that
it's a Thai spice?
Oh no, I'm not going to try that.
So that it's a Thai spice
because that's going to blow my head off. We've got a bit to go yet in this podcast.
So that one's a different one. It's a very attractive looking plant, even as an ornamental plant. It's a very attractive looking one. One year I said, I'll try a Scotch bonnet for the crack and see if it'll come up, and I'll try a habanero. And I did. I got them to grow, and I actually got a crop off it. But the habaneros were the most popular. Yeah. So I started off with a few, and then I said, can you do a few more? So it's this year I went for it, and I have about 60 habanero plants. So I have yellow habanero and I have orange habanero. Yeah. So that was one that kind of chefs were intrigued about and they wanted to use. So that's them there.
And I guess the beauty of the chilies is like very productive plant. Like how many chilies would you get off one plant? Be 40, 50 maybe, something like that?
Yeah, definitely. And serranos, like you can see the ones that are there, they're kind of bigger than your middle finger. They're
that these ones?
No, that's actually paprika, believe it or not.
Oh, right.
So, it's not fully ripe. I just brought it today. But
and then you've got more of these shape-shifting should
aubergines.
Be tomatoes, but are in fact aubergines.
Yeah.
So. Where is the serrano?
Just up there. I'll have to check my notes. I think you can get just shy of maybe, I think it was about 500 or 600 per plant, something like that.
600
grams. Probably less than a kilo per plant. It was something like that. I'd have to check, but it depends on the year. Like the first year I did it, a bit like apple drop, I did nip enough out of the blossoms, which meant you had a lot of little ones. Yeah. So I learned from that, and then it meant then the chilies were bigger than the following year. Okay. Obviously the weather has an influence too.
Yeah. But I just think for people listening that, you can grow maybe 50 chilies on one plant in a container. I think that's a huge takeaway, that. And again, it's one of those ones you can store, you can pickle, you can freeze them.
There's so much you can do with it.
Like there's no reason not to be self-sufficient in chilies, I always think.
No, and the thing is like you don't need to do 10 plants. Yeah. People are saying, oh, I want to go do this, and they do too much too quick. And I'm like, no, just like there might be 10 seeds in the packet. If you get them coming up, great, but then give them and share them to your friends or family,
I'm the same. I always do too many, and this year I've got tons of them in the tunnel and way more than I need. I mean, like probably 3 plants is enough for me to kind of pickle and
it depends how much you like your spice. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. It's like asking you to pick a favorite child maybe, but favorite tomato variety.
Oh, there's yellow submarine. That's
you're only allowed one, Lynsay. I can see you're coming up with a list there in your head.
It's hard because you see, it depends what you like. I mean, like if you ask me for like a beefsteak, it would probably be black creme.
No,
Definitely.
you're still going with a list now of different types here. So I'm gonna get you to nail your colours to the mast. If you could only grow one tomato plant, what would it be?
I'd say probably black cherry. I think a cherry plant's quite prolific. You can never go wrong. If anybody was starting out, cherry plant's the best way to start. Like you'll always get something off it. Whereas
This is black cherry, right?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It has a lovely
beautiful
origami
tomato.
taste to it.
Really productive, great flavour. Yeah.
Yep.
Would you say that taste and flavour is your primary driver?
Oh, absolutely. If it doesn't taste good, what's the point?
Yeah.
It has to taste good. I think the fact if you're bringing an heirloom, you're bringing an old variety back. I love the fact of bringing something rare back.
Yeah.
That gives me goosebumps.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm always reading about the description about the tomatoes, because I kind of want to know a little bit about their story, where they came from, what country they came from, and then kind of get it to grow. And then when you have it, then what can you do with it?
Yeah.
So flavor is key. Otherwise, I mean, no.
What's the point?
Yeah.
And I think that probably speaks to then why the chefs you're working with love this so much, love your produce so much. There's a couple of other lovely things. There's a beautiful yellow courgette. There's a couple of lovely different types.
Don't ask me to pronounce that one. I think it's some Japanese variety.
It's a lovely little aubergine. It's a kind of a mini aubergine, is it?
Yeah. So it's a Japanese variety.
This looks like a little baby melon of some
Yeah.
description.
So I found some seeds. It was called Minnesota Midget Melon. Sounds like a terrible name, but
terrible.
I know, it's shocking.
Un-PC.
I know, very un-PC. It's terrible. But it's basically like a cantaloupe. I have it in my hand here, so it fits into my hand. I have small hands, so it's probably the size of a cricket ball, about that. But the beauty of this was I grew it probably once before a couple of years ago, and I said, you know what, this year I'll do about 6 plants. So I did 6 plants. And I had done a watermelon, which I'll talk about in a minute. I did about 6 plants. And when you're growing, you're thinking, oh, is this going to work? And then the thing about the melon is it has an umbilical cord, what I call the mothership, the main heart of the plant. And you're watching it. And as soon as the umbilical cord comes off, it's ready, because it's just only a hint of colour will change in the tone on the outside of the skin. And then you're doing it. And then you're kind of going with the first one, you're kind of cutting it up going, please be orange, please be orange. And then it's orange and you're delighted then. And then you taste it.
If it's not orange, what is it? Green. And it means
green.
You picked it too
early. That's why I'm always watching for the umbilical cord. And if it's given any give, it's ready. So I think we have the last 2 here, literally, today that I brought, because they're nearly done. But they came off really well. I did grow a watermelon for the crack one year. And honestly, it was like minding a child. It kind of grew. And I think it was about 2 kilos in weight. And I found it so hard to know when it was ready, because it doesn't give you a clue.
One on the plant?
One
How many
survived.
Would you get with the one that you're
with this one
there?
here? That's the other reason why I went with this, because I thought I'd get more. Again, because I'm doing it in containers, you're kind of limited. So with this one, I think we had about somewhere between 6 and 8 per plant, which wasn't bad.
That's not bad, yeah.
It's not bad. Now, there might have been a few more, but this was probably the biggest of them.
Yeah.
I had a few smaller ones than that.
Can I ask you, looking at you holding it and 6 or 7 plants, at Google with their whatever, 1,000 employees, what are they going to do with that, do you think?
Well, I mean, there was one chef had come up with, Kevin Thornton actually was on the farm, and he went off and made this mad lemon sorbet, which was really cool. So he did sort of different things. But look, I think the thing is, for me, that was the starting point. And maybe I might do some more next year. We'll see. It's kind of, it's me. It's kind of like an R&D thing. I'll just go out there, see what happens. And if it tastes good, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. What a wonderful business you've created that you can just explore weird shit, that you like to grow and that you get a kick out of, and people pay you for it.
I mean, obviously for something like this, I mightn't do a tunnel of melons, but it's more the fact it's a talking point, and if they've guessed something, I could do it for a specific event or something. You can do that. But
I love that. That's just brilliant.
It's an unusual situation to be in.
The little tub in front of us here that looks like they're Cape gooseberries or something.
Yeah, no, they're actually called pineapple phasalis, so it's smaller than a Cape gooseberry, but it's like a little Chinese lantern with what looks like a tiny cherry tomato inside it. When you taste it, it has a kick of pineapple. It's like it doesn't even taste like a cherry tomato. It's the consistency of a cherry tomato, but to me it's far sweeter than that.
Wow, I have to try that. So beautiful as well. You can imagine that.
You kind of go, oh, summer when you eat it.
So inside, tiny little yellow cherry tomato. That's what it looks like.
Orange gets this.
Oh my God, yeah, and it just tastes like pineapple. That is crazy.
It's nuts. So the chefs loved that. So I think I did that for the first time last year. So I'm going to see where I can go with that. I didn't have room this year, so I just did one plant. But it comes to the point that just the whole lot, there's loads of it. You're trying to catch it all.
That's brilliant. I'm just really curious, I have a tiny number of tomato plants by comparison to you, but in a relatively big tunnel at home, and getting the irrigation right changed my life, as you kind of alluded to earlier on. I was going around with like filling water in cans and all sorts of mad stuff. Got a drip feed hose, runs along the ground, you turn it on for an hour, Bob's your uncle. What do you do when it's in pots like that? Like, is it just a drip hose that goes from pot to pot effectively?
Well, like the tomatoes are in a growing media as a grow bag.
In a grow bag,
They're a grow bag. Everything else is either in crates or pots, but the drip feeders just go straight to the roots.
Okay.
And everything.
Yeah, very good. And what about supporting the plants then? Yeah. Again, I'm just like, I'm using this almost as a consultancy, to be honest. Let's hope people find it interesting a little bit. But how do you support the tomato plants?
Well, I'm halfway between your common gardener and sort of a commercial grower, though I don't even like calling myself a commercial grower, to be perfectly honest. I just use string or twine or kind of fairly durable, not rope, it's more like a twine.
Yeah.
Then it can biodegrade.
So that's tied to the crop bars.
And I have, there's staging there, so there'll be either wire or there's like metal bars.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's down the lines. Just using the existing stuff that's there. It does get fun though, because this year, I don't know whether it was the weather or what, but normally kind of the crop sort of starts mid-June, sort of trickling in, and usually by the first week of July, bam, you're away. And it was probably maybe about a week or two later this year. But the weight on the beef tomatoes, I was like, oh my God. I was there going, please turn around because I can pick you, because it was just there's so much weight on them. Same with the chili plants this year. I've had the same problem.
Generally, how has it been as a growing year for you weather-wise?
Well, I suppose the biggest risk for me is frost early on. You're kind of trying to anticipate when the frost was. And it wasn't too bad this year. Although having said that, April was quite a cool month on reflection. So my only risk is then trying to get the tomato plants out. Sometimes it's the end of March, beginning of April. And I pushed it out to the beginning of April now because it's just too risky. March is just too risky. And as well as I don't want to be fleecing them every night.
Just for people who maybe don't grow tomato plants, so you take them out of a kind of a hot environment.
Oh yeah, that's my converted fridge.
That's your converted fridge, and you're putting them into the tunnel in a pot, and you get a really frosty night inside, and the tunnel could kill the plants.
Yeah, so this is where I've gone from the plants are in a pot and then to go into their final planting position. So you're trying to just determine when do I do that.
Yeah.
And if you do it too early, and if it's a frosty night, even if you put fleece and stuff on, it's still a risk it could get damaged. So that's what you're trying to avoid.
Yeah.
So push it probably into April. Having said that, April wasn't the warmest. I am hardening my plants up for sure, definitely. I push them hard early so that they can kind of cope with the cool nights. So yeah, from that point of view, I definitely noticed that the crop took a little bit longer to ripen. As I said, I was mentioning earlier that it was probably maybe a week or so later for the tomatoes to ripen up. But once it got going, they were fine.
Yeah.
And then obviously the chilies are about a month later. So I'll tell you.
Yeah. So. Light levels have been a bit low for the summer, I guess.
They have.
Yeah.
So I've had to kind of give a natural ripener to them. Wood ash is your friend.
Wood ash helps with ripening.
Not mix anything else, just pure wood ash.
And just sprinkled on the surface of the soil?
Now, obviously, if you have it in soil, you can put it down into your soil. You can do it that way. Or you can do the fun way of getting your wood ash and you can put it into perotites and squeeze it through and get your juice at the bottom. So I've done that too.
Wow. And that's applied at what time of the year, or at the beginning?
That would be kind of more kind of into your summertime.
Right.
Particularly in August. From then on, that's a good way of ripening up your plants.
Yeah.
Especially in August.
Okay. Brilliant. It's been a reasonable year, I suppose.
Yeah, it has. Like, you never know what way it's going to be. You just never know what's going to happen. Having said that, when it's really hot, I have the opposite problem. I actually remember seeing a sunburned tomato. Wow. I remember seeing white like them, because my tunnels are east-west facing. So one side will get more heat and light than the other. Yeah. And I've actually seen it like literally the colours taken out because there's so much sun on it.
And the concrete, presumably, like you get a lot of heat bouncing off that kind of, like you have a business that's viable and that you found your niche, and it's not
trying to get there. It's hard work. Like, I couldn't survive on it, like on its own. Like I said, it's more of a part-time, in inverted commas, even though it's not part-time.
Passion project, kind of.
Yeah. So like, I mean, they wouldn't feed my family. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So my husband works as well. I couldn't do it without him, you know?
Okay, fair enough. It feels like there's something about the importance of a niche though, and you found your niche very successfully.
Like I say, I kind of fell into it and I kind of just focused on trying to get a product that people liked. And that's all I focused on. Doors are opening now. And I'm like, okay. Like, I'm that bad. I don't have a social media or anything. Like, I've just put all my energy into the produce.
Yeah. And it feels like you'd need to be fully focused on it with 6 big tunnels. Yeah. like the workload must be intense, particularly at this time of the year when you're...
Pick days are funny.
Yeah.
Girls will tell you, like, we're out early, we're picking, and I pick and deliver on the same day.
Yeah.
So it's bang, 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 go, 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 you know.
Yeah.
So, but it means that product been picked and it's gone and it's up to the customer within a couple of hours.
Yeah. When does your kind of real downtime start to happen then? Like
Halloween onwards.
Yeah.
So, but even at that, I'm still cleaning out tunnels and emptying stuff, but at least I can take it at my own pace, you know.
Yeah.
You start doing things in dribs and drabs anyway. You probably know yourself, certain things die, you finish off, you're doing them in dribs and drabs, but the last to go is the chilies and the tomatoes. So it takes a while to kind of get those tunnels emptied and cleaned down.
Yeah.
Halloween, it's like, hey,
yeah,
I'm getting there, I can have a break.
Yeah.
So it's just very intense. It's very intense because, you know, some people go away on summer holidays. We don't go on summer holidays. So we stay around. If we do, it's down to see family or whatever else.
Yeah, and I guess the challenge then as well is you're at your busiest when kids are off school. Like,
well, they've got something to do then, haven't they?
I bet they do. Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Do they work in the tunnels with you, the kids?
Yeah, they have done. Yeah, no, they're getting taller now. They get taller, they can reach more tomatoes. So yeah, they're no, they pick the cherry tomatoes. They're good at picking tomatoes now. They kind of know the drill, like how to pick them properly and all kind of stuff. So yeah, and they get them to wash crates and different things.
Yeah,
so there's always something to be done. They know when to come out to me, and then if they don't want to be seen and they don't want a job, they don't come near me.
They know how to hide. Yeah.
So
they might be very glad of the kind of pocket money later on, I guess, as well, as they get a bit older.
Oh yeah, no, that's happening already.
And one of the things, again, that jumps out at me, like my biggest time sucker, I suppose, from managing a tunnel or managing a veg garden is weeds. Like you avoid most of that, I guess.
That's probably the biggest perk because I hate weeding.
Yeah.
At least if it's in a container. Like the funny thing is actually because a lot of tomato stuff is in my compost, I'm constantly picking out tomato seedlings. Like this year we were having a laugh with all the courgette plants and squash plants. I was constantly picking out tomato plants.
Wow.
So that's not a bad complaint.
It's in the air, I guess. It's
just in the compost. It's there. So it's in my compost. It just comes up through. So yeah.
Yeah.
So probably thing I haven't said is that generally speaking, it's busy, but like I make a point of seeing each plant at least once a week. You're walking around looking for stuff.
Yeah.
And I have the girls with me and even the lads checking for aphids is probably the biggest problem we had this year. Answering your question earlier, aphids was a massive problem. I don't use any pesticides, so I have a guy who kind of gives me biological control. And he was telling me that it's just been horrendous for the horticulture industry this year. Greenfly. Problem being that the nights were cooler. And then as a result, then the biological control, the good guys couldn't eat the aphids. They couldn't actually eat them because they were dying. It was too cold. So that was proving problems. So we had to try and work around that this year. So that was a big thing. So anyway, as I said, we're walking one round, checking the plants, looking for aphids, looking for red spider mite. You're trying to preempt stuff before it happens. You're always trying to look for stuff. If you procrastinate, you're screwed.
Yeah.
So, you know, so that's
what's the biological control? How does that work?
So that means I don't use pesticides. So basically what that is where the good bugs eat the unwanted bugs. I don't like calling them pests because they have their place, but I don't want them where I want them. Yeah. So unwanted bugs. So basically if it's something like green fly, you can get a thing called AP Scout. It sounds scary. They're called a parasitic wasp. Now they're not like your wasp. They're tiny. They're very, very small, but they actually go out and seek the green fly and they'll actually eat them. So that's their job. So they do it naturally. They're like a natural predator to eat the prey. So that's what they do. And then similarly then with red spider mite, they're tiny, tiny, microscopically small. You can just about see it with the naked eye, barely see it. And basically what happens with them is they multiply so quickly. And if you're not on top of that, you'll have these wispy webs all over your things and your plant just can't survive and it dies. Yeah. So you could lose. Strawberry plants suffer notoriously from it, but your squash, your peppers, your aubergines, they all get annihilated with that. So literally you put a sachet up and you hang it on your plant. I've one there on the aubergine plant there, and you hang it up on the plant when the plant is tall enough to take it, and basically it will release the good bugs gradually over time. So you can build up the population in your tunnel and then it manages it. Yeah. So it's doing the job for you.
That's amazing.
It's a bit like the bees. The bees are doing the job for you.
Yeah.
I would be spending hours tickling flowers if I were to do that, but that's the same purpose. They do the same thing.
Okay. Yeah, that's brilliant. Have you any sense of things you want to do differently next year or things you want to try out?
I don't know. I think I like to kind of take something quirky like your kiwano or your melon. So I like to look for something a bit new. Yeah. There's another plant I haven't mentioned yet. that I grew. Again, I did about 6 plants. It's called a sponge gourd. So it's from the cucumber kind of family, that line, but it grows into a loofah. Do you know what a loofah is?
Yeah.
So
like
I saw this and I went, oh, come on.
Yeah.
So I didn't even know if it would grow, but it's grown. And basically they're, to describe it, what's that? About the length of a child's ruler, about 30 centimeters long.
Yeah.
They're at that stage at the moment, and I'm waiting for them to go into a sponge. Not quite sure how that's going to happen, but I'm going to see what happens. So to answer your question, I like to pick up something a bit mad, along with looking for new flavors and everything else.
That definitely fits into that category. Is it like coming soon to a bathroom in Google near you, or what? Like, what are they going to do with it?
Well, I just did it for a bit of fun. It's a talking point as well. But apparently, you can actually eat the sponge gourd at an early stage.
Okay.
But at this stage now, the size they are now, no, they'll be going into a sponge. But I just did it for a bit of fun, really. You know? It's also a talking point, and it means then, if you go to places where they invite me to somewhere, I'll kind of say, well, look, you know, this is what happens. If you don't experiment, you won't know, you know, you won't try. It's a bit like, you know, people saying, I don't know what I'll do. But sure, my mind is just put a herb on your windowsill, see what happens. Use it in your cooking and take it from there.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that, like actually any practical tips for growers listening, I suppose, about...
Well, anybody who's doing stuff in containers is definitely have a tray and put it in a tray. And then pour the water in the tray. So if you're going out to work all day and you come back, it's not dying. At least you've put water in it. You've kind of looked after it. To me, that's probably an easy one, because a lot of people kind of forget about that. So you just put a little tray and that kind of manages it.
Yeah, and they do like, I think, the water from underneath. They do. To suck it up
prefer
themselves.
That.
Same
it's
with
amazing.
Plants and...
I find it amazing how quickly they just suck it up. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
So you know then if it's too much, it'll just sit there. So you just know to drain it off.
Yeah.
So that's probably, I think what happens to a lot of people is they're busy during the day, which is fair enough, gone to work, bits and pieces, and they come home and they realise, oh God, it's all shriveled. Or someone told me a great suggestion of doing, you can do cherry tomatoes in hanging baskets. At the end of the day, get the hanging basket and just basically set it in a bucket. Leave it overnight. It take whatever water it needs, and then that's it. You hang it up during the day. So that's just a simple thing. You know? Or another one would be if you have a small greenhouse, definitely for the winter time, or kind of in the springtime, the early springtime when the days are still that kind of crisp, early frosty mornings, is bring the bucket, fill it up with water, leave it in your glass house, and then it means then that regulates the temperature in your little greenhouse. That's a handy one, and it means then the water, when you use it on your plants, is at the correct temperature. Yeah,
that's brilliant idea. Love that. Lynsay, we have a closing tradition here where we ask all of our guests why food matters. Why does it matter to you?
I suppose for me, it's a pleasure to see where a seed and its journey and where it goes to. It's a pleasure to see what it'll produce and what it'll taste like. And it's a gift then for somebody to enjoy that as something to eat and enjoy with family and friends. Yeah,
I love that. I absolutely love that. Lynsay, thanks a million for joining us. Like, it's just been such a brilliant conversation, and I think what you've done is extraordinary, and your background story is unbelievable. Like, to go from kind of falling into it, as you said, to providing all this amazing produce that is just so beautiful to behold and tastes so amazing. So hats off to you. Like, it's an absolutely brilliant thing that you've done, and thanks a million for joining us.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode of Food Matters, but we would love you to get more connected to the GIY universe. So we believe that our food system is having a catastrophic impact on people's health and the health of our planet. And we think a movement of people growing some of their own food is the way to fix it. You can stay connected to GIY by signing up to our free newsletter and check out our full range of events, campaigns, resources and courses at giy.ie. Check out the show notes for more information. Thanks for listening and see you soon.